What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm your host Crow, and let's get into the video. With the Brawl Stars World Finals coming up, I decided I needed to fix my predictions after LCQ. You should listen to my predictions, bro. Predictions are really bad. That's why I spent the last week poring over Brawl Stars history to hopefully help me, and also you, viewer, predict correctly and get that sweet hypercharge. So without further ado, let's get into the video. Now, like the supreme Brawl Stars nerd that I am, I compiled by hand statistics from every World Final, major event, and monthly final this year. So if I made some mistakes, please let me know down in the comments below. I tried my best to keep everything as accurate as possible, but with all the roster changes this year, it was pretty difficult. I started off by analyzing each team's win rate throughout this year's monthly finals. Each team's win rate with regard to individual games, sets, and full matches will give them a regular season power rating from 0 to 150. Now, as we are all aware, some regions are less competitive than others, meaning that the teams at the top will naturally have higher win rates than others. In particular, the teams from APAC and South America regions have notably higher win rates than North America and EMEA. To account for this, points are calculated based on each region rather than over the entire world. Across the board, this resulted in these percentages being translated to these amount of points. Overall, these numbers show approximately how each team measured up in the regular season, with 3 teams leading their respective regions in game win rate, set win rate, and match win rate, giving Crazy Raccoon, Zeta Division, and Space Station Gaming each 150 points. Close behind are Pioneers and Elevate, who both performed extremely well in the North America region, as well as SK Gaming and Humble, 2 notable teams from the EMEA region. It is a bit surprising to see the sharp point drop-off towards the bottom. In the case of Rival Esports, they did quite a bit worse statistically than their regional rival, Crazy Raccoon. With Totem and Eternal Fire, who are tied at the bottom, both of them had pretty rough regular seasons, both qualifying through the last chance qualifier. Overall, though, it's pretty close throughout, just going to show how competitive this last year has been. Before we get into the LAN statistics, I decided to add a couple bonus points for teams that did especially well against other World Finals qualifying teams from their regions. Based on each team's percentage win rate for both sets and matches against other World Finals teams from their region, I gave them some number of points out of 20. This was not super impactful, but Elevate gained a nice 14 points for their exceptional performances against the other North American teams, while Pioneers did quite poorly in the 2 games they played against other qualifying teams from their region, giving them only 2.5 points. Now for the biggest headache for me over the last week, LAN performances. The way I decided to calculate this was as follows. Each team received a weighted percentage win rate based on their previous performances at any official Brawl Stars LAN. This means every World Finals, LCQ from the last 2 years, and the 2022 MSI. I decided not to include any Snapdragon Pro Series events because they were not quite as consequential in my opinion, and the EMEA region was enough of a nightmare already. The way I calculated this weighted average was using this formula on screen right now. Using this method, more recent performances are weighted more heavily, while earlier achievements factor less into our calculations. In addition, I weighted MSI half as heavily as the World Finals that year due to the format of the event. A very important thing to consider is that this calculation is performed per performance per player on a team. This means that a performance by a full team of 3, like Foot's recent dominance at LCQ, is counted 3 times. Meanwhile, Tensai's statistics when he won the 2022 World Finals are only counted once, since he is the only Crazy Raccoon player to have won that year. With all that in mind, here are the weighted percentage win rates for each team in games, sets, and matches. Translated into the points, this is what it looks like. And here's the total number of points each team gains from this metric. Immediately, you might notice a perfect 150 out of 150 possible points by the members of Crazy Raccoon. This means they had the best percentage win rate out of any team in games, sets, and matches. Of course, this is to be expected with their 2-year-long reign of terror boosting their statistics massively. Both Elevate and Pioneers lost a ton of points here because no player on either team has won a single match at a major LAN yet. This does result in their overall power rating being lower than it probably should be, but it's up to them to prove that they can overcome their lack of experience and rise to the top. Another team to look at is Humble. Their players have tons of LAN experience and they finished at the top of EMEA this year, but they have historically struggled to make anything happen at LAN. You may be surprised to see LG in the top 3 for LAN performance, but they are very scrappy players who tend to make every match close and make every game count. This results in them having a high game win rate, and combined with a solid match win rate, gives them a statistical edge at LAN. So where does this leave us? We've looked at several metrics for team strength, and now let's look at the power rating leaderboard. Here we are. The culmination of years worth of data and statistics gives us this power rating for each team. Out of 320 possible points, the top team, Crazy Raccoon, scored 312 points. That's insane. If we're not counting the regional performance metric, they scored a perfect 300 out of 300 points in both regular season and postseason metrics. This just reinforces what we all already knew. These guys are absolute beasts at the game. To the surprise of no one, Zeta Division takes second place with nearly 300 points themselves. Then we have two teams we might not have expected, Luminosity and Foot Esports. However, these teams have both had strong LAN performances in recent years, contributing to higher point totals for both of them. Moving down the list, we see more or less what we would have expected, although the lack of LAN data for Elevate and Pioneers has placed them lower than they probably deserve. Overall, this is a pretty solid metric for team power, and although anything could happen on game day, I would bet on this model over my own terrible predictions. So what does this mean for our actual predictions? If we're using this model to try to get that free hypercharge I know you all want, you'll be predicting SK to beat Elevate, Space Station to beat Pioneers, Crazy Raccoon to beat Zeta, Humble to beat Rival Esports, Foot to beat SK, Totem to beat Space Station, Zeta to beat Luminosity, Humble to beat Eternal Fire, Foot to beat Elevate, Totem to beat Pioneers, Crazy Raccoon to beat Luminosity, and Eternal Fire to beat Rival. Overall, these are pretty good predictions in my opinion. The only things I would really change are to have SK and maybe Elevate beating Foot, but Foot did so well at LCQ that it's kind of hard to bet against them. Of course, it'll always hurt me to vote against my boys on LG, but I trust that they'll make it close. It is really unfortunate that the top 3 teams predicted by our model got placed in the same group, but they'll be putting on a good show for sure. Of course, with a best of 3 format, anything can happen, but if you want a deeper dive into the best predictions, make sure to check out the 2 videos I've linked in the description down below. That's going to be all for this video. Thank you all so much for watching. This is my first time making a video like this, and I really love sharing my passion for Brawl esports with y'all. So if you liked the video, leave a like and a comment, and maybe even consider subscribing. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.